All right. So, welcome to the Brave Souls. I will say, when I pulled in, that thunder. At first, I thought it was fireworks.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so loud. All right. So, a couple quick things I'm gonna bring on who you really want. Let me get this back in the full screen here, so we got it nice and pretty. Definitely want to thank Tech Systems for bringing food and Slingshot for providing space. So upcoming meetups, give me a couple more days and I'll actually have these filled in because I am talking to several different people. But just so those are the dates, which they're all the third Thursday. So no deviations from the quarter, which is surprising. So upcoming events. So events coming up, which I just went ahead and listed everything that I'm doing, right? But the big one to promote, Since Deliver is coming up on August 1st. So that's obviously in Cincinnati. It's I'm a little bit biased, so I help run the event. But I think we do a good job with that event. It's all about delivering software, so it's not just code focus. It's a lot of other things. Two of the beer events coming up. Debugging in St. Charles and Beer City in Grand Rapids. Got a little event that's named after beer. Actually, the whole thing is Grand Rapids has been named like Beer City for like the last 5 years or whatever, and that's where they came up with the name of the conference. And then KCDC, which is one of the big ones, and then a bunch of other events, which honestly are kind of far away from here, but we also have people online, so that's why I show all these events. One I would say, if you want to follow me to Tunisia, right? That one's gonna be fun. All right. And then my last announcement, as normal, we'll go to Brick House afterwards for those who want to join. Definitely hope everyone joins us. So with that, so tonight we've got Sam Shaw. So you do go by Sam, right? Yeah. So we got Sam Shaw from Columbus.
You got it?
Yes. There's a lot of people up in Columbus. It's crazy how much stuff is, community stuff is up there. But he proposed this debugging burnout, and I think this is a really good session. Whether you're new in software or you're old like me and been doing this forever, because we all go through it, right? And, it's little side story about me. I'm the guy who I'm supposed to work 45 hours a week, and probably the shortest week I've worked all this year is like 60 hours, right? It's the way how I am. But even I go through burnout, right? And where so it's I really liked the way how the abstract was, because it's kind of looking more into what we're talking about with burnout and how can we debug ourselves. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I start doing spiels, camera muted. Oh, that's gonna be fun. All right, one more time. Sounded good? Sharing screen, maybe sharing screen. And
Well, after sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
There we go.
All right. Cool. Ish. Where's presentation mode? Here we go. One more time. Hey, okay. So as mentioned, my name is Samuel Shaw. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I started giving a talk on burnout probably close to like 3 or 4 years at this point. And it was largely centered around the theme for me of I was just burnt the hell out, and I figured the best way to learn is to teach. So I'm just going to start doing a presentation on it. And so slowly this has grown more and more through conventions that I've spoken at, just a lot of people that I've talked to. It's a thing that is common in every industry, every level of every industry. The fresh guy out of dev boot camp and the 20-year vet are all going to be experiencing the same themes with burnout. So I wanted to learn it. I had a lot of good conversations with it. So who am I? I do coding stuff. So I've been in the game for about 10 years or so. I was in academia beforehand, and I realized that I loved academia, but there's no money in academia. So there's more money to be had doing software development. So I just jumped ship and have been there ever since. I do fighty stuffs for fun. I do a lot of Krav Maga and Kung Fu, and just dabbling around with some other stuff. I like bourbon stuff, which is also convenient for me that this trip is now a tax write-off because I'm giving this talk. So go team. And then also family stuff. My wife and I have 2 dogs that are back up at home and just love traveling and spending time with that as well. One big caveat, though, to note that is not on that list is I am not a therapist. So none of this is actually like official medical advice. I highly recommend talking to therapists. I have a great relationship with mine. I swear by it. Hugely big fan. I am not a therapist, though. So this is a lot of anecdotes and research that I've done, but this is not actual medical advice. With that said, what is burnout? I feel like burnout is something that we're all like loosely aware of, but symptoms and you can feel it, but getting to a shared, what actually is it? And so some people before me, much smarter than I have actually tried to define it. The ICD-10, this is basically an insurance thing, which is the International Center for Diseases, has a big long list of every type of ailment, basically. And it's largely for insurance purposes. So there's a lot of tax codes and stuff like that go along with it. They defined burnout in their 10th iteration of this as the approximate symptoms were burnout, which, gotta love that. That's super helpful. And then physical and emotional exhaustive state. Okay, so we have something that we can work with there, but I think we can do better. And apparently so did the ICD group. So in their 11th revision, they defined workplace burnout specifically. So workplace burnout, according to them, was feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job or others, and then reduced professional efficacy. So a lot of this is very work-centric, and I feel like oftentimes the conversation around burnout is work-focused. And so even if you look at WebMD, they talk about overburden, under-challenged, neglect, but again, all in a work environment. And I can't speak for everyone, but I personally have been burnt out in hobbies. I have been burnt out professionally. I've been burnt out in things that I'm supposed to find relaxing, in relationships and friendships. Burnout is far more pervasive than just something in the work sense. So I want to try to peel that back a little bit and see if we can't abstract things a little bit. So this is my proposal for what we're going to call burnout, at least for today's talk, is we've got 3 buckets, and we can start to see how they relate to each other. We have the environment, which is what's around me, the expectations, what I'm expecting out of that environment, and there's going to be some difference between the two. So it's going to take a certain amount of energy to kind of maintain that balance that goes and forth between them. So using this as our launching point, let's dig into it. So to start, let's talk about our environment. So the environment is as it is perceived by you, what you're seeing around you. So let's meet Alice. Alice does not want to go to work tomorrow. This talk works better on a Sunday when everyone also does not want to go to work tomorrow. But the big question is why? So if Alice has a big project that she's trying to roll out, but constant roadblocks every step of the way. She's trying to get the senior architect's attention, and he's just busy in 47 different other things. So it's just constantly spinning her wheels, trying to get some type of attention to be able to actually work on it. She's just not feeling it. It's not going to be a productive day. Why even bother? So for Alice, it starts to peel back layers of trying to figure out what's a framework? What is something that she can latch onto to figure out who she is? Why do these things that are actual blockers, but why does that detract from wanting to go to work? Where is the disconnect there? And what's important to her? Is it solving the problem? Is it the process of solving the problem? Where does that actually align to actually help her feel good about going to work tomorrow? So this is an exercise that my therapist had me go through, and it was one of the hardest things I've done, and I absolutely swear by it. It's called the Personal Values Card Sort. It was done by a research group out in New Mexico, 10, 15 years ago at this point in time. What the exercise is, though, there's about 100 cards, and they're just single word cards. They could be responsibilities or history or authenticity or any smattering number of things, including some blank ones that you can fill in on your own. Your job is to sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to take this list of 100 things and put them into 3 piles. Things that are very important to me, things that are just important to me, and things that just not super important to me. And then after that, you're going to take your very important to you pile, which for me was like 30, 25, 30 or so. My therapist was like, cool, get it down to 10. That was hard. Started to really have to like get to this core of like, what things are actually the most important to me? I finally got it down to 10. He's like, cool, now get it down to 5. Now get it down to 3. And it starts to get to this like, no, these 2 things are me. This is the same thing. Like, how am I supposed to choose between those? He was like, that's a good question. So choose. Figure out, like, actually force yourself to get it down to those top 3. And so I did. So this is actually my results, my actual results. The things that are most important to me are growth, order, and integrity. Things that are important to me, but might not be like a core defining moment, are mastery and passion. And something that's just honestly not important to me is tradition. These are my results. Yours can and should look different. Tradition might be something that is very important to you. And that's not to say that that is an incorrect answer. It's just that this is a very personal result for me. The other fun thing about this is the way that my therapist helped me like peel it away and tease through it is your top 5, top 10, they're going to be pretty fluid. I actually will go back to this once a year, once every other year or so. And I realized that my top 3 results change as different things influence me, as different things start to come into my life, different stories, different things have happened. What actually is at my core of what's most important to me changes with it. So it's fun that like this is not something that is you do it once, these are your top 3 core values for the rest of your life, you have it figured out, you can check that box off and move on. It's something that's worth revisiting and having that conversation about. We can talk more about that in a second. So we're developers. We have tools that can talk through this. So what we actually just went through is a concept of trying to deal with abstraction. We're trying to actually take something that is very broad with a lot of different things that can impact our lives and tease it down to what is like the actual core most values that are going to be utilized across all other implementations of it. It's also something that we can use to avoid scope creep, where we can start to have a very defined, like this is the thing that I'm actually trying to see this object or see this activity through. So asking yourself, not just through these core value exercises, but like, is there a common thread for your source of stress? Is there an unmet or even a violated core value? This was actually something that about 2 years ago now led me to a pretty big job change because the job wasn't bad, but the job was not meeting my core values. And it was specifically like just through financial times, all of the growth opportunities that I were promised were ripped away. And that was something that definitely left a bitter taste in my mouth. But the interesting part was, and this is very much not everyone, I was very blessed to have this result. I was able to have a very serious and real conversation with my manager saying, it's not the company, this is one of my core values is growth. And that's being violated by me staying here. And I still have a great working relationship with a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my peers there. And I'd like to think that some of it was because both I was willing to be very honest and my manager and the other people were willing to hear very honest. So it's definitely a two-way street that goes with it. But I think that you can have better conversations that go with this as well. The other part that's a good question to ask is making sure that you're solving the problem at the correct level. I'm sure everyone has either met somebody or knows somebody who knows somebody, especially in the developer industry, that is burnt out. So they change jobs because that's magically going to fix everything. And 2 months later, they're burnt out again. And so that's optimistic programming. That is just trying to throw stuff out there, see what finally works, and being able to actually implement it. So trying to have this conversation where you can bring it down to a core level, know what the problem is, and be able to work towards fixing it is a very empowering way to go about this conversation of what actually is causing burnout at that point in time for your environment. So this is something Alice can do. Alice can start to work on what actually is important to her. What is the delay or the problems at work that are really causing her to feel Like she doesn't want to go to work? Is it things that are not being seen or anything like that? She can start to drill that down. But the problem is, if Alice doesn't know what's wrong, it's just, there's not much that you can do with that. You can't like really drill it down to that. So words are hard. That's my main takeaway of a lot of things. And phenomenally, there is an XKD for literally everything. So I will pause for suspense while people read. And also conveniently gives me a chance to get a drink of water. Okay, so we're in good old Louisville, yay bourbon. So if you were to ask Nick Offerman or Ron Swanson, and I'm still not convinced they're different people, about the new canoe he was building, he could tell you about the grain of wood, where the trees were from, the different tools and implements that he went with it. If you ask just about damn near anyone out here about some glass of bourbon, they can talk to you about what's on the nose, what's on the palate, what's on the taste, being able to describe this tasting experience. If you ask a sommelier to like, what's the best wine to pair with this cheese, they will have like, all of the notes, the linens, the legs on the glass, this big language and vocabulary to describe to you what this best wine is. And then if you ask somebody, hey, how are you doing today? Good. If we have these abilities to develop such a deep, rich language for so many different things, we are doing all of ourselves a disservice to not learn that language for our own emotions. There's the 4 basic human emotions are HALT. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And that's oftentimes, it doesn't feel like we really go beyond that. So there's a book that I was reading called Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett. And he proposed having things breaking down into this just 2-axis quadrant. So you've got your feelings on your x-axis, your energy on the y-axis, and asking yourself, are you more unpleasant or pleasant? And are you more low energy or high energy? And this is just a basic, quadrant to start to figure out what am I feeling right now? He actually has a full grid with words put to all of these. So what's the difference between enraged or livid? What's the difference between being calm or chill? But starting to figure out if I'm a little bit more pleasant than just being like, if calm is kind of on that teetering between pleasant and unpleasant, it's going to be more of a neutral. But if I'm a little bit more pleasant than just a neutral, there's going to be a different word for that. So we can start to learn that different word that goes with it. Same thing with being if you're in a pleasant or a high energy one, learning the difference between optimistic or surprised or excited, being able to start to name these emotions with more fidelity will give you more power to being able to understand where you actually are, what you're actually feeling. And on top of that, that also gives you better tooling or better understanding to figure out where you need to go as well. Because knowing where you want to end up is better than just I don't want to feel this way. Not wanting to feel a way is not a direction. That's just running away from something, not towards something. So being able to actually to give you a target to hit and work towards is hugely helpful, especially when dealing with something as complex as human emotions. Kind of a complex thing. So Permission to Feel, highly recommend it. But that also gives us some tooling, again, that we should be used to in our day-to-day of let's bring in analytics. Let's put numbers and values to an A/B test that we're using for deployment. Let's figure out the root cause analysis of what's actually going on with, what am I actually feeling right now? It's not just I am angry, but where am I at in that graph or that chart to be able to understand where I want to be. Labeling it, hugely helpful. So that also helps you drill down into the why. So if Alice can't put words to things, she can start to understand, okay, well, where am I and where do I want to go with this? Mark Brackett, the guy who did the book, actually has an app. It was called, I think it's called How We Feel now. It used to be called the Mood Meter. If you search for either, it's on iOS and Android, it'll pop up. But what it does is you can check in and just be like, today I am in this quadrant and this word. And you can it'll give you an option of, do you want to add more notes for what's going on at this point in time? But you can start to actually get data points for how your emotions and how you're feeling and what might have gone to help contribute that. So Highly recommend it. I am a huge fan of in releases. I try to be very data driven with making sure that I understand that we can release the best thing possible for the end user. Same thing with emotions. I try to be very data driven and helping me understand what I'm feeling and why, and being able to label that as necessary. So we talked about having words for our emotions. We talked about having these core values, and all of these are tools to help understand where I am right now. That was our environment. But we've got a couple other buckets to talk about. So let's talk about our expectations. If my environment is where I'm at right now, my expectations are going to be what I assume I can get out of that environment, or what that environment should be doing to fuel me, or where I want my environment to take me in the long term. A lot of things that can be backed into this. So let's meet Bob. Bob just doesn't know how to grow. Bob has been spinning his wheels in the same company. He has been the software engineer one for the last 6 years, and he's kind of coasting, but doesn't really know how to be challenged and doesn't quite really know what those next steps might be. So let's see how we can help out Bob. First and foremost, goal setting. There can be an entire other conversation about how to make like good goals as well. So we're just going to briefly touch on it today. A good goal is SMART. It is specific, measurable, actionable, responsible, something that you are responsible for, and time-bounded. Goals I've found are very good for precision, good for motivation, good for directions. If you need a place to get to and you have a very well-defined place that you can control, that is phenomenal. The hard part for me with goal setting is that responsible. There's a lot of things that like I have goals wrapped around, but I might not be the ultimate decision maker for that. If my goal is I want to get promoted at work, I can do all of the things that I should do with that. But at the end of the day, am I responsible for promoting me? No. So that's something, even if I'm checking all the boxes and doing everything right, that's not something I'm responsible for. That is ultimately someone else's decision, the company's decision. There's a business need. There's a bajillion different reasons for not promotions that I've heard in my career. So we need something a little bit more flexible. An example of this is one of my very dear friends. She had a goal, my Kung Fu teacher, actually. She had a goal of she wanted to get back into competing Kung Fu. And so that was her New Year's resolution. How's everyone's New Year's resolutions going? Super great. Yeah. Did we even have those? Her New Year's resolution, her goal for the year was to get back into competition Kung Fu. Easter time, she got diagnosed with breast cancer. All of a sudden, her goal is kind of not the most important thing right now. And so there are two ways that you can look at this. You can either look at her goal became a failure, or you can start to reframe how you actually look at goals, which is going to bring us to themes, which I am a huge fan of. If you're familiar with the YouTuber CGP Grey, I totally stole all of this from him, and I will give him complete credit for it. The idea of theming is something that has drastically changed my life, because it's something that has, instead of having very specific things that I will succeed or fail by, it gives me directions that I can actually try to go. So using my friend as the example, if her, instead of a goal, if she was looking at the year of being the best that she could be, let's say the year of health, she wants to get in phenomenal shape. The cancer diagnosis comes around. What actually is the best shape for her has changed, but her theme is still on message. That's still something she can work towards. So there is no failure of a goal at that point in time. You're really just taking a pivot and just being like, I'm still on brand to do this. What I've noticed with themes are they're very good for life. They're very good for life's messy. So they're good to have that flexibility to still let you work towards accomplishing massive changes without actually having, I don't like almost the risk of failure. There's more forgiveness that's built into it, which is something that has resonated with me personally. So themes are something, the other thing, again, stolen straight from CGP Grey, is theming is intentionally vague. It's meant to have a trend line. And I use this word resonance, which is one of my favorite words. It's a physics phenomenon. And so a resonance, like objects will have a resonant frequency. That is the frequency, if you hold a tuning fork against it, that the object will actually like amplify that sound. The neat thing about resonance is it is not dependent on the tuning fork, it is dependent on the object being resonated. And that's why I like this for themes specifically. It's not about what the words are or what makes sense for anything else. It's what makes sense for you. What is resonating for you, something, a word, a phrase, a thought that you can latch your head around. The other thing that CGP Grey mentioned that I very much enjoy, a year is the perfect amount of time to do literally nothing. Because you start in the year and it's still cold outside, it's winter, like I don't need to really go outside yet. Like I have plenty of time to get back in shape. I'll just start that in spring so that way I can be outside and start running. Well, then spring happens, but then we have to catch up on grill outs and I have to meet up a lot of friends because I was just in my house for the last 4 months in winter. So like I got to actually get out and do stuff now. Well, then it's summer. Now it's vacation time and pool time. So like I can't start yet. Like I still have 6 months away. And you can go through an entire year with, there's plenty of time to just do it later. And so the thought is if you have a theme, tailor it to a season. This is the winter of blank, the spring of blank. For me, right now, I am going through the summer of exploration. I actually just was able to achieve something that I've been working towards lately. And so now it's like, well, I want to like explore and try new things again and have this novelty with it. And so that is what I'm trying to live my life by right now, is figuring out when given the option, I'm going to try the new thing because that's just where I'm at right now. And that's where Sam is at right now. Everyone can and should look different with this one. I've done one of my previous ones was the fall of documentation because I realized just how much stuff I was forgetting. And so I actually started having a Trello board for my personal life because I kept on forgetting little details. The wife would ask me to do something like, yes, I will. And I totally meant to, and it just fell off my radar and I forgot it. And it was like, hey, I know what operating a Trello board looks like for work. Does it work for home? For me, it does. So theming is a very powerful way to have a bite-sized chunk of life, to try something new, to try a focus, and it's a good amount of time to actually make a meaningful change, but you have to start today. And that has been something that has helped me out a lot as well. So for Bob, that is something that he now has some tools that he can look at. This is actually a screenshot of my personal Trello board that I use to keep track of things that I need to be doing for myself as well. It's not accurate because I took that a couple years ago. But beauty of theming is it gives you that flexibility. It gives you flexibility in time frames. It gives you flexibility in as life happens, you can respond to that and still be on brand. It also breaks things down, breaks goals down into bite-sized chunks, things that you can work on, but you have to start now. I'm a huge fan of that. So this is something that Bob can work on as well, is if he's unsure how to grow or what to do, having a theme of discovery. Sometimes that theme can just be like, I don't know what's going on. Let me just ask a lot of questions. Sometimes the theme can be, this is an actual like goal that I'm trying to accomplish. Other times it can just be you know what, I just want to find more joy in life. So I'm going to just pick some things that make me happy and do one of those every day. Whatever it might be, whatever makes sense. So if Bob is looking to grow, he can look for questions or mentors or find people to latch onto to help him grow. Carding, estimation, all of that boils down into that timing that goes along with it. So if that's how Bob wants to start grasping more ways out of his expectations, he's going to start trying new things. But if he's trying new things, he might fail at those new things. And failing is embarrassing and nobody wants to actually do that. So if the goal is to try new things, there has to be some level of like, what's going to take me over that hurdle of making sure that like I still have my integrity and myself intact, because otherwise like I don't want to just feel icky while I'm trying to actually try new things. So there's a book Dr. Carol S. Dweck wrote called Mindset. This is one of the books that I will easily say has changed my life. It's something that she spends the entire time highlighting the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset is the knowledge that you have, the wits that you have is at that level, and that is where you're at. A growth mindset is anything is learnable and growable, whatever that might be. It might be easier or harder for some others, but what they found is when they started asking like school-age children, like second, third graders, different types of questions, kids that had a fixed mindset would stray away from taking difficult exams because that would, if they had a risk of not knowing something, then that would show that they weren't actually smart. Kids with the growth mindset were actively trying to take those harder exams because that was highlighting ways that they could improve and grow. And so they found that through the entire course of life. I don't know why this example latched on so well for me, because I am not a sports person in any way, shape, or form, but you see it a lot with very top tier athletes. There was one year that I remember Michael Jordan was the worst defensive player of the year. And he said, you know what, I'm going to fix that. And the next year he won defensive MVP. There are ways that you can see that and be like, well, yeah, I mean, like, I'm Michael Jordan. I don't have to play defense. And people would be like, yeah, that tracks. You're good at that. Like, that's perfectly fine. But he chose instead to take it as a learning opportunity and improve that aspect as well. You see a lot with professionals that are able to grow into higher and higher levels is this ability to see an opportunity to pull out information that I don't know out of a circumstance and learn. The biggest phrase that stuck out to me is are you looking for opportunities to learn or show off what you know? The hard part about that is what happens in a pull request. If you are the one who's actually trying to review someone else's code, is the code wrong, or is the code just not what I would have done? And that can be a very fine line of a difference. Sometimes it is wrong. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I got this from ChatGPT. And I'm like, cool, denied that real quick. Being able to understand the balance is hard, but starting to realize, is there a new way that I should be approaching problems out of like approaching this pull request out of curiosity? Or am I just trying to say, no, this is how we do it because this is how Sam does it? It's a fun thought to have in the back of your head. So what to build? How do we actually start to work towards trying new things? There is a thing called, or another book, The Talent Code, which is a good, talks about how basically the top tier athletes or very high performing teams or high performing people or individuals are made, for lack of a better word. And a lot of it comes from training themselves in what feels like extreme environments or like heavily constrained environments. But what they found is there's actually an entire physiological difference to it. It is you're firing your neurons, your actual brain cells, the stuff that is your nervous system, has this thing called myelin, which is your white matter in your brain. It's basically a little protein that will wrap around the axon, which is the long tail part of a neuron. And this, the more myelin that you have, the faster the neuron will fire. So it's literally, as you do more of the thing, you will do the thing faster and better. And so when you're starting to train yourself and working yourself with new or different environments, the more you do it, the better you will be at doing this. Now, if we start to bring a couple of these concepts together, if we're looking at a growth mindset and the more I do something, the better that I'll be at it, that can apply to one specific thing, but we also talked about abstracting entities as well. So that means the more you try new things, the better you will be at trying new things. Which, bringing it back to Bob's case, that means that the more things that he tries and fails at potentially, the better he will be at trying new things and failing things and getting through the embarrassment and working with that as well. So this is a complete flip of the script. The embarrassment might still be there for the first couple times, but the 100th time that you try something new, you're going to, oh, this is old hat. I'm used to it. So what? That didn't work. I can learn from it and I can move on. So if Bob is looking to try new things, try a lot of new things, regardless of if they're work related. Just throw yourself into new things and you'll get better at trying new things. So some things that we can do to help emphasize this is some more tools. We've got sprint reviews. We can actually talk through hey, I was trying a bunch of new things. What were the new things that I tried? Did they work? Was it actually a failure? What did I learn out of this one? Another thing is you can actually hit breakpoints to help train your brain that goes along with this. We'll talk about gratitude journaling in just a minute, but this is actually something that I trained myself to journal, and I hated journaling before this. I still kind of do. But I got good at it because what I did was I put it on top of my phone charger, which means every night before I would put my phone on the phone charger, I would have to physically move the journal. And then I'm holding it, and now I might as well use it while I'm actually there. So you can set breakpoints for yourself in your day-to-day life to help to game the system and help you learn and try new things. This other one is something that I did where every evening at 10:30 p.m., my phone has an alarm go off to savor something. Just think of one good thing that happened during the day. And I want to like reflect on that and try to end my day thinking on that one good thing instead of the last hour of doom scrolling and everything that came out of that. So little things that Bob can try, little things that I've tried, some things that you can try. So we've talked about my environment, where I'm at right now. We've talked about my expectations, where I want to be and how I can start to like move them to connect the difference. But let's talk about the energy, what it takes to maintain the difference between the two. Because we're in the real world and it's never going to be a perfect, oh, wow, all of my expectations were perfectly met with where I'm at right now. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. So the energy used to maintain the difference between the two. Let's meet Charlie. The world sucks. Why bother? Good old Charlie Brown bringing it real. So gratitude journaling is something that I now recommend. Never thought that I actually would. There is a, last I checked, which it's been a few months, so I'm assuming it's still there. On coursera.org, there is a Yale 10-week program that's called The Science of Well-Being. I think if you actually, The Science of Happiness is also what it shows up as. But it was interesting to me that there's a great amount of research papers and actual like medical journal studies around happiness or gratitude, which is just broke my brain a little bit. I always thought it was this like nebulous cloud that doesn't really like can't be defined, but people much smarter than I have been working towards it. So they did an experiment. They asked a group of people to write down 5 things at the end of a week. And they had, of course, their different groups of people. So one group, their job was to write down 5 things that happened, just a neutral. That's your control group. They had another group write down 5 things that annoyed them throughout the week. Pretty easy to do. And then they had another group that wrote down 5 things that they were grateful for throughout the week. And then they'd ask them a series of questions, like, what's your outlook on next week? How are you feeling? Like ways to quantify the results a little bit. And what they found is those that had the gratitude saw this is out of 7, by the way, and I can't really see it. So that's a thing. So the people who were writing down gratitude notes, or I should say, across the board, the people that wrote down negative events and just normal events were approximately the same. The happiness group had a 0.5 increase on life as a whole. Just they were feeling better as a whole. They had about a 0.3, about a third of a point increase on outlook on the upcoming week. They felt better. And the thing that really blew me away is they exercised more. The people who wrote down 5 things that they were grateful for each week spent about an hour more in the gym the next week than the control groups. Didn't even know that they would be tracking it. That one completely caught me off guard. But there is a lot that goes to the whole, like where your energy stores are coming from and what you're actually focusing on. So that was super interesting to me. So we're gonna do a thing real quick. In the sense of documentation, I'm gonna say we're gonna put a minute on the clock, and I want everyone to just write down in your cell phone, if you have a notebook or anything like that, don't care. We're going to take a minute, and I want you to write down 3 things that you're grateful for. It can be a good cup of coffee. It can be, I would say the weather, but that happened today. So just 3 things you're grateful for. We got a minute going, and this is another conveniently planned drink break for me. one time. And this is going to be, I'm going to break every talking faux pas. If you're still working on it, keep staring at your cell phones and keep working on it. One of the other things that they talked about is writing and delivering a note of gratitude to someone. And this was another one that caught me a little off guard. So the thought was you take just a handwritten note of, dear so-and-so, I am grateful for you because, and basically just write a letter of appreciation to a friend, a loved one, a teacher, whomever, and deliver it. And so what they noticed is pre-test to this, the control group and the writing a letter of appreciation about the same market of happiness. Post-writing it, there was about a 50% increase in happiness from the group that actually wrote this letter. And the thing that caught me off guard, it took 6 months for those values to normalize again, which means that was a high that they were riding for that, that had a measurable increase for 6 months amount of time. I actually did this. I wrote a letter to a friend that had moved away during COVID and felt great about it. I forgot to deliver it. It didn't even matter that this person never once saw or read the letter. I felt great about it, and that's the real point here. So weird, caught me off guard. I liked it that it actually worked. So a tool, rubber duck debugging, one of my favorite things to do in actually helping work through code, and it starts to highlight how much of a team sport coding can be. And sometimes that team sport is a rubber duck sitting on your desk just because you need to verbalize it. So having somebody or something that you can just buddy up with and be able to hey, I just need to brain dump some ideas here, does a lot to actually help process and help learn, and in this case, help increase happiness as well. One of the research paper that my therapist sent me pointed out that the part of the brain that processes thought is different than the part of the brain that processes speech. So that means when you are actually verbalizing a thought, you are moving that information in your brain. So there is a different processing that happens when you are speaking a thought versus just having that thought. So, yes?
Does it matter if you're verbalizing to somebody else, or could you be verbalizing just on your own?
For the thought stuff, no. Actually speaking it aloud and verbalizing it, it's still going to move that to I actually had an old mentor of mine a few jobs ago. He actually bought everyone in the company rubber ducks and put them on his desk because he was tired of people bugging him with questions that were super easy. And so he'd be like, hey, Adam, can you help me with this? Did you ask your duck yet? So just being able to verbalize it actually helps. For the gratitude side of things, that is that human-to-human bond as well that helps out with that. So yes, and. Cool. So this gives Charlie some stuff to do. So he can actually start to work on having more of a team unit, more of a bonding that goes along with it. The unfortunate part is everything costs energy, no matter what you do. Nothing is worse than being in the place where you finally sit down at the end of the day and you're I know the things that I want to do to be relaxed, but I just don't have the energy to get up and even do those relaxing things right now. So come on, doom scrolling. So how do we actually work towards investing that? There are two ways to kind of go about it that you can implement. Is first off, figuring out what your intention is, what your needs are. Are you looking to refill your cup of energy, or are you looking to conserve what you have? And so figuring out which of those buckets you need to draw from is important because that's probably going to change what your actions look like on the other side of that. From there, it's starting to figure out what resonates with you. So what do you want to do to relax? The big thing that I always want to call out is hobbies are not side hustles. The second you start earning money from your hobbies, congratulations, you have another job. And then it becomes a responsibility and no longer something you're doing to relax. I have fallen prey to this countless times of, hey, I really like doing this thing. Now I'm going to start teaching that thing. And okay, now I have to be there doing this thing instead of it being for me. So paying attention to that. Be a beginner in something. A lot of this talk has been let's try something new, let's figure stuff out. And I do want to emphasize hobbies are important. Vacations and explorations are very important. Work-life balance is very important. The other thing that I also want to call out is, do you have any analog hobbies? I can easily say one of the most depressed times in my life was during COVID because I was working from home, staring at the computer screen for 8 hours a day. And then it was my relaxing time. So I would boot up World of Warcraft and stare at the exact same screen for another 5-6 hours into the evening. Having something to do to just physically remove yourself from that room, that space, from not staring at another screen, especially in the developer industry, is hugely important. So figuring out what works for you, there's actually something, this was kind of neat that I read about that Canada did, because of course Canada. They had a way that a doctor can prescribe a national park pass, because they found such a correlation with being outside, time outside, being like getting people away from their, like the walking, the energy that comes along with it, being in nature. So they can actually prescribe you 20 minutes of national park time a week or something like that. And they will give you a park or national park pass to go along with that, or prescribe one, I should say. That's neat, but also the study found that about 2 hours a week in nature is where that threshold started to tip to being like, okay, this is like a worthwhile investment. So going for a walk, going for time outside, even if it's just like go to a bench and just sit down for a bit. Obviously, weather dependent, there's a lot that can go into that as well. But for me, it changed it from, instead of looking for excuses not to, I was trying to look for times to do. One of the other big flips for me was that when I started going on walks without always feeling like I need to be walking my dog while I'm going on a walk. This walk is for me. If the dog is going to be very reactive and barking at everything, at every bird and squirrel that I see, that's not going to be as helpful as if I'm just taking a walk for me. So all this is just figuring out what might work in your schedule. Figuring out what might work is hugely important. We actually have in Scrum an entire meeting that is dedicated to this, which is our retro, which is not about the work that was done. It's about how that work was done. And figuring out, are there ways to optimize? Are there ways that we can do things that are better? Are there friction points that we can remove? Applying this to your life also involves asking, are there hobbies that you once found relaxing, but they no longer are? I've definitely fallen prey into that, where my hobbies start to become my identity. And so then I'm like, well, no, I have to do this because that's who I am. But it's not. That hobby is supposed to help me relax. And if it is no longer helping me relax, it is no longer serving me. Use that time to try to find something new. That doesn't have to give up friends or anything like that. That's something that like is just something to consider as well. Is that hobby still serving you like it once was? So another thing that we can talk about is breathing. There are a bajillion different studies and Eastern medicine and yoga and everything that talks about some form of getting control of your breath actually helps out with being able to like regulate things like, honestly, burnout and how you're feeling your current emotional state. So there are two nervous systems at play here. You have your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response. And you have your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. That's when you're actually, it is literally different parts of your brain that are firing at these types of stimuli. So they did a series of studies. My main takeaway as a non-medical person is that measuring heart rate is really weird. But to sum up all of the weird medical stuff that I am not going to pretend to understand, what they found is they did a study where people were doing strenuous physical activity for 5 minutes, and then they would rest afterwards. And they would tell one group of people to breathe normally, one group of people to hyperventilate, another group of people to breathe slowly. And what they found is the people that breathed slowly decreased their heart rate much quicker than any of the other two groups. Specifically, what they found, there we go, is 8 breaths per minute was the magical number. Where if you get shorter than 8 breaths, so like 6-7 breaths per minute, 8 breaths per minute, that's when you're going to see that nervous system flip from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. So what I do personally, what also I lead a lot of people through in our gym is this, like some people call it box breathing. There's a whole lot of different names for it. What I found is I will breathe 3 seconds in, hold 1 for the top, breathe 4 seconds out, hold 1 at the bottom. So let's do it real quick. We're going to have everyone breathe in, 2, 3, hold at the top, out, 2, 3, 4, hold at the bottom. In, 2, 3, hold at the top, out, 2, 3, 4, hold at the bottom. Keep going on your own. I recommend to continue breathing. It is helpful. But yeah, that's something that I actually will use like after coaching when people are very amped up. The last minute of the class is, hey, we're going to do breath work, because that's also going to help everyone reset their bodies, reset their nervous system, and help calm down a bit. The other thing that I like to note with this study is they also mentioned that each subject sat on a soft chair, which brings me back to one of my favorite Reddit posts of all time, where someone said, always invest in things between you and the ground. Chairs, mattresses, shoes, worth your time. So breathing, super important. We're going to add another one. So this is something that this is a recent add to the talk. So this is something that we're still kind of playing around and feeling around with, is focusing on what you can control. We talked earlier about when setting a goal, sometimes it's very difficult to find something that I am truly in control of to be able to actually work towards and achieving that thing. There's two things that I've noticed, and when I think of, anecdotally, Sam, of things that keep me from being in control or finding things that I can't control, is one is slipping into executive dysfunction, where I have either made too many decisions or there's too much going on, there's too much stimuli, and I feel like I can't control anything because I'm still trying to process the last 7 hours of information, and I can't take on any new information at that point in time. So trying to find ways to prevent executive dysfunction is another way to start to figure out what you can actually control. This is where we get anecdotal Sam time. One of the things that I have found has directly tied from one into the other is what I'm doing in the seconds of downtime that I have. If I am walking to the cafeteria or I have to refill my water bottle or something like that, if I pull out my phone and I'm starting to just doom scroll during the walk or something like that, what I've realized is happening is I am increasing my levels of information. I'm bombarding myself with more and more information, which means I am not giving any of the previous information from work or life or other stimuli a chance to actually process and digest that information, because I'm just bombarding it with more. So best way that I have found to help avoid executive dysfunction and stuff in general, very loosely defined there, is also to force myself to take those walks, but leave my phone at my desk. Or the hardest one for me, when I go to bed at night, put my phone in a different room, because that keeps me from doing that before I'm going to bed, where I'm just adding more information instead of allowing my brain time to process it. Harvard Health Publishing had a paper that I've got linked at the end. I like the way that they directly called out that they did a study of like 800 participants and found that doom scrolling invoked greater levels of existential anxiety. Focusing on what I control, especially in today's climate, is doom scrolling is feeding me more information about things that I do not have control over. So not only am I bombarding myself with information that is keeping me from processing the things I can control, I am replacing information on things I can't control with information on things that I cannot. And that has been a very hard spiral for me to come out. Still working on it. None of this is magically solved in my life as well. So for Charlie to work on that, a big tool, let me get back to you on that. I am amazed at how often in my professional career it is respected even when people will ask me a question and they'll be like, that is a very good question. I don't know. Let me get back to you on that. And that gives you the time to breathe, to process information, to figure out what some of the gotchas might be, and deliver a more robust, well thought out answer than a knee-jerk reaction. Granted, sometimes there is a knee-jerk reaction that is the correct answer and like you need to unblock someone. So like there's a balance to all of this. But that is something that I have seen a lot of success with in my career, but also I've seen a lot of the people that I look up to and the mentors that I have in my career. I learned this one from them, is that take a minute. Even if it's just like, let me get back to you after this meeting so I can double check a couple things. Take that minute. It's worth the time. So Charlie's got a lot of stuff to work on. Alice has a lot of stuff to work on. Bob's got a lot of stuff to work on. The common definition. So we talked about, we've got my environment of where I'm at, my expectations of where I want to be or what I want out of my environment, and this energy balance to maintain the gap between the two. We talked about how we have a lot of tools that we can use to work towards each of them, how we can set goals and themes, focus on growth, and we can use documentation and check-ins to help with our expectations, core values and language, and abstracting our environment to figure out and understand that more. Gratitude, relaxation, hugely helpful in refilling that energy block. You can use rubber duck debugging, that human-to-human connection or reflection to start to understand what's going on between them. But the most important takeaway to remember is burnout is hard. There is no silver bullet. There is no, I have solved this once and therefore I never have to worry about it again. It is a constant balance. It is an ebb and flow. The goal of this is not to solve burnout. Honestly, the goal of this is not for you to go home and try every single one of these. The goal is for you to have one thing that you might be able to like resonate with and work on, or go learn your own. But the most important thing is to keep the conversation going. I've tried to distill it down to 3 knobs we can turn. You can work on your expectations, you can work on your environment, or you can work on your energy pools. And I recommend picking one tool to start focusing in on that. I referenced a lot of books and a lot of sites there. This is everything. The QR code goes to my GitHub, which has, I think, the previous version of this one, and I changed some stuff. So I owe you updating this version of the slides on the GitHub as well. We talked about a lot of books. The Permission to Feel, hugely good. Mindset, if you pick one book to read from this, I recommend Mindset the most. Talent Code's really good. Professional Product Owner is also just a good way to like how you approach projects and long-term stuff. I also always love throwing out The Martian there just because it's one of my favorite books and it's like a love letter to the problem-solving process. So I'm a huge fan of it. With all of that said, questions? What can I do? How can I help you out? What are you thinking?
What was the name of the tool you said where you had the cards?
Yes, that was the core values tool that was done by a group in New Mexico, which is this one.
Okay.
So if you just Google the core value cards, it or one of 73 other options that people have come up with will pop up there as well. Highly recommend it. Great question. What else you got?
You might not know the answer, but like, how long does it last when like you slow your breathing down? Like if I did that and I slowed my heart rate down,
Yeah.
how long would that last for?
That's a good question. The study, so it would be, my best answer is going to be it depends. Largely on what the next stimuli is. Like it's less of a like, my heart rate is now going to be this rate for the next 3 days, but more so I have recovered from this stressful event. If another stressful event happens a half hour later, going to be breathing through it again.
You have to have like a controlled environment to
Yeah.
with that stat.
But that is something that's also just having that in your back pocket to pull out in, even at the end of a stressful meeting, just closing it, going for a walk and focusing on your breath work. If it's in the gym, focusing on your breath work. If it is you just got out of meeting with the in-laws and, oh dear God, please help me, focusing on the breath work. It actually comes into play in a lot of different areas of life, more than just a career. What you got?
Yes. First of all, excellent talk.
Thank you.
Right up my alley. CGP great, and XKCD. I mean, hard to go wrong with those two. One of the things that troubles me about the breath work, well, I think it's definitely a good idea, but I tend to just get caught up in the counting.
Mm-hmm.
Like my entire monologue is just 1, 2, 3, and that's, I don't know, hard to maintain.
It's fair. Also good. That's absolutely like can be a part of it as well, because there's a whole different school of thought of like how like meditation and breath work can kind of blend in with that as well. And if you're focused on the counting of just like in 2, 3, hold top, out 2, 3, like that's perfectly fine, because that's still going to be have you going through the breath work, and that also gets you closer into the meditation realm as well.
That's true. Well, I tend to run into that is that I get bored with it and stop counting.
That's fair.
I get like through 4 cycles. I'm like, okay, I've said the numbers enough.
At least you didn't say stop breathing.
Well, I stopped breathing for many times. No, I stopped breathing in that manner because I get tired. No offense. I mean,
No, that's fine. That's fine.
My attention span is very long.
That's the
I will say part of that could be also that you're calming down. As you're counting it out,
Yeah,
you're calming
that's
down.
I
And
get
once
so,
you get to a calm stage,
yeah,
it's that work is done.
I get so bored of counting. I'm like, okay, fine. Not
That's-
gonna be stressed anymore.
Yeah.
the other thing is growth mindset. If you trail off after 4, shoot for 5 next time.
So just on the breathwork thing, I had a yoga instructor once, and if your mind is racing, start breathing slower. And the trick there was not counting, but looking at the second hand on the clock.
Ooh, that's
And
nice.
like you pick certain spots at which, like, okay, I'm gonna breathe in here,
I like that.
breathe out
Yeah.
there. It's a not a mental numbers thing, but a pattern.
Yeah, it's like a
visual
metronome.
I like
you
that.
let it keep it. You let it keep the time,
Yeah,
and you don't have to worry about it as much. Yeah.
later on, I got an Apple Watch, and it has like a breathe
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like a very weird wee
That's
thing. So
good. I like that.
Then also there's different types of breath work too for different applications. Like if you want to, calm down,
Yeah.
if you want to get yourself more alert, depending on how you breathe. I mean, I've even
Really?
heard that like if you hold your breath for a bit, you can actually warm your body up if you're freezing.
Huh.
Like you're sitting at the bus stop, and you wait for the bus to get there, you start holding your breath, you produce more alkaline in your bloodstream, and that warms you up.
Interesting. I didn't know you could use it to wake yourself up because I can find that handy at times.
Oh yeah, if you start breathing like really fast,
Oh,
just like not like super fast, but at least you
Right.
start kind of
Yeah,
having
yeah.
to puff a little bit, you can actually get more oxygen flowing. And
yeah. I'll give that a try.
yeah, if you Google breathwork, there's like all kinds of different patterns. that do different
Yeah.
things.
I like the idea. I just hate keeping count manually.
And that's
So
the,
that's a good idea.
I love that one, and also to the points of different breath work. Like that is the one example that I use, but there are a lot of different patterns and different ways to. And like you can always mix and match if you get bored with
Yeah.
the same pattern. Be like, okay, I'm going to do one of these, then I'm going to do a 4 on each count, and then like play with it.
Okay. Yeah, I like it.
What else?
How do you mitigate the effect of seeming crazy or talking to a rubber duck?
For talking what?
To a rubber duck.
oh,
You
I
know-
have an answer for that.
5G.
That's an expectation that other people see me as sane. So I just throw I throw a shoe to them and say, guys, I am so crazy. And look at the socks. Wait, I'm not wearing good socks today, but normally I have like colorful socks, and so I just like, if I'm seeming normal, they're like, Sonny, something wrong with you. So that's how I do that.
When you said you had a boss who bought everybody rubber ducks,
Mhm.
my mental image was everybody sitting in a cubicle just like talking to themselves to rubber duck all day long.
That there was one developer that I worked with, and that's basically what he did. Is he was the best at it because he would like put his duck on his desk and he was like, okay, so duck, and then just go and explain his entire problem to it. And for debugging purposes, the number of times that myself or others would get halfway through explaining to the duck and go like, oh,
Yeah.
and just be able to go
Yep.
work on it with stuff as well.
I do think you need to replace your duck picture with a duck with
Oh
you know about ducks and chiefs, right?
yeah, oh yeah.
Well, I mean, duck is definitely helpful, but I also find that I'm more of a verbal out loud thinker myself anyway. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just talk and not necessarily to anyone, just it helps me kind of get the thought processes out. Can't
Agree.
say whether it actually helps me or not, but I do it.
I'm the same way.
I get myself in trouble too much talking to myself.
They gave me an office with the door that closes for that very reason. And I talk loud, so even my neighbor will
that's
start
the
sending me like, I can't believe you just said this.
If you're a pacer, make sure that you're on the first floor. Otherwise, people would need to get mad.
Call the boss an idiot, and somebody tells you, "Hey, the boss just walked past your office right as you said that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. What else? Awesome. Well, thank you all very much for having me. Definitely enjoyed coming down with it. My main recommendation, pick one thing. Doesn't have to be one thing from this talk, but whatever resonates with you, pick one thing. Work on that. Thank you.
Well, like I said, for those who want to join us, someone else will be heading over to